Hi! Are you one of those stringers that got into stringing to restring your own rackets and save money? And now that you're into it, you want to try natural gut but are intimidated by the price or the fear of messing up? Since natural gut strings require special care, I'll demonstrate 5 special things when working with these special strings. Alright, let's go inside. So one of the first things you want to do is clean your clamps and adjust them accordingly. So what you want to do first is clean them thoroughly. So that's in the teeth area. You want to make sure that you take care of the rails. And I'm using denatured alcohol. I did another video where on my previous machine I was using isopropyl alcohol. So that'll do too. So you want to clean everything that you would normally clean when you do your maintenance on your clamps. But again, you're going to do this right before you string with natural gut. So then once you clean your clamps, you want to adjust it. So I'll show you on my clamp what I have here. I have this adjustment dial that looks like this. And right now it's set where I normally would string my rackets. Sometimes I'll go a little tighter if it's an 18 gauge at high tension. But in this case, it's a 16 gauge. It is at 60 pounds, so that's pretty high, but I'm still gonna loosen it up. And this has a nice adjustment there. So I'm gonna just do that for the other clamp also. If this was a 17 gauge at 60 pounds, I might probably leave it right there because I'll need a little bit more holding pressure. So the goal is to make sure that when you adjust the clamp, it's not going to press on the string too tightly, and you don't want to leave teeth mark in the string, but yet you still want to make sure that it holds. So you have to know your clamps to be able to adjust it accordingly, and before you adjust it, you want to make sure you clean it thoroughly. All right, so before you go ahead and string the racket, you have to decide if you want to pre-stretch your strings. And back when I was using a lockout machine, I would always pre-stretch it manually. And pre-stretching the strings does a couple of things. One, it removes the coil memory from the strings. And what I mean by that is when you open a set of strings, you're going to notice, and all strings have this, but on a natural gut, it has this coil memory. So by pre-stretching it, you'll be able to remove some of that, and make it easier to work with and reduce the chances of kinking. Now, if you want to see how I pre-stretch strings manually, you can check out my video, and I have a link down below. Another reason why you would pre-stretch string is to eliminate some of the tension loss that happens during the first 24 hours. So it does take out some of that initial creep from the strings. By pre-stretching your strings, whether it's manually or electronically, it will result in a higher string tension and a higher string bed deflection, also known as string bed stiffness. I typically will pre-stretch mine at 10%. All right, so the next thing I'm doing is uncoiling and inspecting the set of gut. Now this is a Babolat VS gut, so there should be no problems. If you have a lower grade gut, sometimes it could be. And basically what you're trying to check for is any blemishes, any rough spots, really rough spots, bumps in the gut. And if you can detect it early on, you might be able to return it wherever you bought it from. So what I'm gonna do is I have the coil of string in my left hand, and I'm holding it loosely enough so that as I pull the string through, I'm actually feeling the gut with my fingers here, and I'm also watching or looking at the string to see if there's any blemishes. But what I'm going to do is as I pull it, it's actually going to start uncoiling the gut. So you can kind of see that rotating. And what I'm going to do is let it naturally just fall onto the ground. So I'm going to just place it here on my mat. So I'm looking at the string as I'm pulling it through. I'm feeling it for any rough spots. But basically what you want to do is you never want to let go of the entire set of strings and just let it fall to the floor and get tangled. You want it to do what it naturally wants to do, and that's to recoil itself. So I'm going to run my fingers through, I'm going to inspect this entire set until I reach the end. And the goal is to have the strings end up on the ground with it in its coiled state. And once I reach the end, and if it looks like there's nothing wrong with the gut, then I should be good to go. So I'm reaching the end right here, and there's a set of gut right there, and we're good to go. For this next tip, I'm going to call it taming or untangling the strings. And if you're stringing natural gut for the first time, I would recommend stringing two-piece. So then that way you're not dealing with a long length of string. But in my case, I like to use my around the world with a twist pattern. So I'll provide the link if you want to check that out. But I have my long end here, and what happens sometimes is when you have a long length of string, this string right here might start to want to get tangled. So let's see what happens with this one, because sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. But you can see that what I'm doing is I'm shaking it before it gets to that tangled state. And a lot of times it will come out without being tangled that way. So this one worked out really nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and tension this string. And we'll just see what happens on the next couple of strings. But I'm going to just pull this slowly, just kind of shake it as I'm pulling the string through. You usually can avoid it tangling if you just kind of keep it moving like that. I'll do this on this one more string here. So I'm just shaking it out, making sure that it doesn't get tangled. And that worked out well, so the loop went right through there. Let's say if it did get tangled, usually you just gotta move the string in a way that it'll untangle. But again, you don't wanna kink it in that process. So you just have to be patient and just make sure that you do everything slowly. Finally, I wanted to talk about string integrity, and it's usually going to happen when you're reaching down towards the bottom on your last few crosses. And in this case, I'm on my last cross. What you want to watch for, especially if there's a blocked hole on the outside of the frame and you have to send a string through there, what you want to do is make sure that you use the stitching technique, and it's the safest, because if you weave your string through and as you pull it, this will get twisted, and it's hard to avoid it from it really getting badly twisted. So the safest approach again is the stitching technique. I did another video called how to handle hard weaves, and I'll leave a link below. But basically, I'm gonna run my string, and I just want enough so that I can finish this last cross, and I have enough to reach the tension head. I'll just add a little extra string there, and I'm going to cut it off. And so what I'm going to do is, after I get it through that hole, and it is a blocked hole, and you always want to look for the side of that string that has more space, and that would be the better way to approach this hole. So I'm going to go under that string that's blocking the hole, and what I'm going to do is just pull the entire string through. And again, this is the stitching technique. So what you want to do too is, as you're doing the stitch, is to really pay attention to see if the string is unwinding. And the way to remedy that is to make sure that, to avoid it from unwinding, is to rotate the string clockwise. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave each one by just looping it over and under, and that way there's no pulling of the string after I get it to the end. And this will avoid having that twisted loop on the outside of the frame. So I got this string all the way through, and I'm going to come through here, and you can already see that the tip of this string is a little bit frayed. So I'm going to cut it so I have a nicer tip on that end there. And I want to go under that blocked hole. So I got that string through. And right here you want to be careful too, so you just want to make sure you get that through there. All right, so the last tip on string integrity is when you tie off. So sometimes by the time you get to the end, the string can actually start to feel a little bit soft compared to when you started. So what you're going to do is, if that's the case, and just to be safe, you might want to do this. I'm using a pro knot here, so I'm just going to cinch the knot. I just tightened the first loop. But on the second one, as I pull it, I'm going to bring it up to here. I'm actually going to rotate my parallel jaw pliers one time, before I pull up on it. And that's just to make sure that the gut stays twisted in its natural state. And you always want to release the base before the top string clamp, so it reduces the chance of you scraping the string. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this knot tail, but sometimes by the time you get to the end, I mean, it could separate the knot tail. In this case, I can see a little bit of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get crazy glue. And if you use crazy glue and you haven't used it in a while, you might want to test it out first, just to make sure that the drop is not going to be a big drop that'll go right into the grommet, because that'll get kind of messy. So I'll bring this up to the camera, but you'll see that there, you can see that drops coming out of the tip. So that's good. It's not coming out all at once. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the drop out through the tip, and that's what I'm going to apply to the very end of that knot tail. But I'm trying not to get it into the knot, so I'm just getting it on that knot tail so it keeps the fibers together. So I'll go ahead and apply it here. And so it's just on the knot tail itself, and it's the fibers are now intact. So that's one way you can keep the integrity of your knot tails. In this video, I shared 5 special things for these special strings. Now let's say if you still need help with the entire stringing process, check out my in-depth video, Natural Gut Stringing Tips and Techniques. Now, if you're a racket stringer and you never tried natural gut, I hope this video inspired you to invest in a set. Thanks for watching, happy stringing, and let your strings play.